welcome to the final 2015 installment of Lives in Law and Policy, and we're joined by Mike Firestone. Mike actually knows several of the other speakers from this fall, including Governor Dukakis, who's an old friend, and
amazing, living national treasure, guys, unstoppable. And just like that.
Who was here for that? Great. Do you agree with everything that Mike just said?
Yes.
He's the best, right?
He works here on your campus. Guy is amazing.
Yeah, doesn't have to. He's 80, many people are retired, 82 years old, right. And then Eric Lesser, who's also a force of nature.
The next Michael Dukakis.
I was like, where's he going to go with this, right? If Michael Dukakis were reincarnated and raised in Longmeadow, then it's Eric Lesser. So and then we have Mike Firestone. So Mike, unlike a lot of the other speakers, I think is going to talk a little bit more about politics. We've had some people reflect on their legal careers. And in no way am I insulting you for your one-year legal career, but I think
for being a fake lawyer.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, listen. Yeah. You know. So, but what I think will be most fun for the students, and I think they will enjoy this and have a lot of questions. Is, you know, you've been working pretty much full time for the last couple of years in cycles in politics, right? So maybe you can just start by talking about sort of, you know, your upbringing, how you got interested in it, and then let's just chart your sort of career and path in politics up to what you're doing now. Is that?
Yeah, sure. Hey, so my name's Mike Firestone, as Dan said, and I grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts. Who's from Massachusetts? Okay. Oh yeah. See, this is what's so great about Northeastern now. It's like people are from all over the place.
Over the world, you have people from other countries as well.
Yeah. I think sort of, actually, I guess sort of like late in high school, but really in college, just decided that I was interested in being involved in making change through democratic politics. Just wanted to be involved in that work. And honestly, I went to college, it seems like a really long time ago now when you talk about the candidates that I worked for, but
sure.
I went to college in what we would call like a really low point for the Democrats.
Basically, it has to be before 08.
Yeah, it was. So I got to college. I got to college in September of 2001, and so this is this is sort of early George W. Bush, and we had obviously. I think at that point we were very responsive to the loss in Florida of Al Gore, the win for Al Gore, right? And but started to get involved. We had a tough cycle in 2002, but I was just volunteering on campaigns. And I don't know, has anybody here volunteered on a campaign before? So
that's why they're here.
This is something that you can all sort of consider for yourself as a pathway into public service, because I really didn't know what I was sort of getting into, and I didn't know I was sort of building a career path. But what I started doing was just showing up for things. We had a governor's race in Massachusetts. Our candidate lost to Mitt Romney, but I was able to sort of experience that.
Did you work in the general or on a primary? Because there were, like Robert Reich, Tom Birmingham, there were a lot of people in that 02 primary, and then Shannon O'Brien into the general, right?
Yeah, I think I volunteered a little bit for a primary candidate, and then for Tom Birmingham, and then we had a contested Senate race in New Hampshire for one of the current senators in New Hampshire named Jean Shaheen. Is anyone from New Hampshire? Excellent, right? Are you from Manchester?
No.
That's okay. Where are you from?
Portsmouth.
Portsmouth? Okay, beautiful. More popular with people from Massachusetts than Manchester, but I lived in Manchester. Where are you from? Rochester. Okay, also great. Yeah, a couple of Seacoast people. That's nice. So, worked up there. Sort of just drove up, bus trips, and with friends and things like that.
And I'll pause you here. I've said this before. Other speakers have said it. What an opportunity to be in college in Boston. Proximity for primaries, for the general,
Yeah,
right, for New
huge.
Hampshire.
And this is something to think about right now, because the sort of analog to my experience is happening for you right now, because we've got candidates, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, they're all competing to win the New Hampshire primary, which is happening the first week of February. So, as the folks from the Granite State will tell you. So, you can be involved right now and gain some experience in sort of what the life of a political campaign is about. So that's what I started doing, and I got my first job out of college because I, kept sort of following up with the people who I had volunteered for when I was in college.
Sure.
And
did you finish in 05?
I took a semester off to go work for John Kerry, who is now our Secretary of State. He's from here. He's running for president. I moved to Florida. Had a good time down there. But same kind of thing. I mean, I got a job on the Kerry campaign because I've been volunteering for John Kerry for president and here in Boston, and just sort of lucked into an opportunity to move to Florida, and I took some time off. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is, and we're sort of slow getting there. But the point is, I was just sort of trying to find opportunities to work for people who I thought were interesting, to work on campaigns of people who I thought were compelling, and trusting that that would, allow me to meet people and do things that were trying to have an impact, and that would, I guess, ultimately, maybe would help me get a job. Although I didn't kind of quite see how that would connect at the time necessarily.
So was it important to, because previous speakers have talked about this, it is important to, Eric actually said it, to believe in the candidate or the cause?
Yeah.
Or what matters more? For Eric's sake, for all that hard work for then Senator Obama, it was worth it because they believed in him and what he was championing.
I think that's right. I mean, I was a little more mercenary when I was younger because, I was just trying to gain some experience and get into some opportunities, and so you want to take places where you think, you'll be able to do something interesting, and, do you care if it's, Barack Obama or if it's sort of Treasurer Shannon O'Brien who's running for governor? I mean, I don't know. I wasn't crazy for Shannon O'Brien.
Right.
But
I guess neither were the voters.
No, and it turned out that translated into. No, she's a wonderful public servant, but I think now, I mean, after sort of 10 years on, because I've been doing this off and on since then, and I've had a chance to really pursue this. I worked on after college, got a job sort of based on having done all this sort of being involved in college and meeting people. Got myself a job working for the Massachusetts Democratic Party. Just before we nominated for a candidate for governor named Deval Patrick. Massachusetts at the time hadn't elected a Democrat as governor since Michael Dukakis, right? Which a lot of people are very surprised by. I mean, we had this tradition of an overwhelmingly Democratic legislature, which we still have, and then kind of a governor, a Republican governor, kind of a moderate sort of figure who would always run saying, listen, the Democrats are running the show in the legislature, and I'm just here to be like an honest stamp of approval, kind of keep an eye on things, make sure they don't go crazy. And that got people elected cycle after cycle after cycle. And Deval Patrick represented a kind of different sort of politics, kind of a resurgence of sort of ownership of a progressive, more grassroots sort of vision of politics than I think we had seen in Massachusetts in a long time. In some ways, really a roadmap for the Obama campaign in 2008. And if you want to just go back to my hero, Michael Dukakis, a real embrace of the kind of politics that were very out of favor for a long time in the Democratic Party, which was sort of a genuinely sort of economic justice driven message about sort of inclusive politics, which I think Governor Dukakis was really a progressive at a time when that was not as popular as it is now. So anyway, it was very exciting. So I graduated from college and kind of hit a wave at that point, because 2006 was a very successful year. In 2008, I worked for Jean Shaheen, who was running in a rematch for the Senate seat she had lost 6 years earlier. And so that was my sort of first real foray into public service from sort of in a government position. So I got to go do policy work. I moved to DC for 2 years before going to law school to work for Gene Shaheen, doing the sort of policy work around the Recovery Act. The recession had hit, the housing markets were totally collapsed, and but meanwhile Barack Obama had swept in this huge number of congressional Democrats, senators and House members, and so they started doing things to address it, like the Wall Street Reform Act called Dodd-Frank. They passed the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, the Recovery Act, the Serve America Act, the Fair Pay Act. So that was a really cool and exciting time to be in DC. There were some things that they almost did. I mean, people forget this now, but the House passed a cap and trade bill, like to basically like regulate the sale of carbon in the United States as a way of dealing with global warming, and it didn't get voted on in the Senate, but they passed it in the House. We were like that close to significant movement on climate change. So politics can make a difference. We're just in like a particularly dysfunctional period right now.
And now, yeah, you think something progressive is coming out of Congress, it would have to be the Senate compared to the House. Not that the Senate is progressive, but
Yeah.
the House sure isn't.
So it's been a pretty disappointing time, but then I went to law school because if you're interested in public policy, is anyone like a government major or a history major or anything like that? What do you guys study?
Poli-sci,
What do you guys study?
What do we got?
A few folks? Economics?
International affairs,
Arts? English? English?
humanities, social sciences.
Languages? Alright. Some people have no major, that's fine.
So, yeah, or
Math?
they don't want
Any
to talk.
math? Applied math, engineering, anything
Minor.
like that? Alright, nice. New Hampshire and minor math, alright.
Look at that. Yeah.
So, you know, basically was in DC for a couple of years and then decided to go to law school, which is something that I think you can consider if you're interested in public service, because there's a lot of lawyers in public service, but there's also a lot of social workers and a lot of teachers and a lot of first responders and a lot of economists
So, yeah,
and foresters and all sorts of things.
Governor Cox's point was if you want to be a lawyer, it's a good option, but he said, you know, now there's a lot of programs, including MPA and other programs, where you don't necessarily have to go to law school.
Nobody
Right.
needs to go to law school. Nobody needs to go to law school. But my point is that I took 5 years, I went to college, graduated, and then I worked for 5 years, and then decided to go to law school, at which point I think it made some sense. But I guess when it's not like I talk, when I like tour around to colleges, which I don't do, I kind of try to focus on the early years, because I think they're a little more instructive than like what I've done since. I mean, I can say now, when I graduated from, I was very lucky in law school, a very popular bankruptcy professor at Harvard Law School, while I was there, decided to run for the United States Senate, and so then I left law school to work for Elizabeth Warren, who is now our senator.
Had you taken classes with her?
No, she was actually working in Washington, like for the Treasury Department.
Yeah, like oversight of Congress.
She was doing she was at that point helping create the federal agency called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that does a lot of the oversight of mortgages and credit card products and things like that now. So I hadn't had her in class, but that was an incredible campaign. So I worked on that, and then based on that experience, when I did graduate from law school, I got a call from a candidate named Maura Healey, who was deciding that she was going to run for Attorney General, and she asked me to come on board the campaign, and I ran that campaign, and she wanted, now I work in the Attorney General's office as a lawyer, so that's what I do now. But my point is, there's like a little bit of, it now feels like it makes some sense, like I worked on campaigns, and I went to law school, and then I campaigned for an Attorney General, and now I like work there, so I'm kind of a lawyer, and it feels like it makes some sense, but this did not start this way. It literally started because I just like looked for some opportunities, and actually you guys have this baked into your course program because of your co-ops.
Yeah.
So have any of you done a co-op like with a government agency or with something that's related to public policy? No?
Yes? Is that a yes, or no? Okay.
Have any of you done a co-op? Yes, more knowing.
Tell them what you've done.
What have you done? Person in the Mickey Mouse shirt.
Works for a film company in Reebok.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Cooler than anything I did. That's great. Yes.
I worked at Genzyme, a Sanofi company. I'm a neuroscience major, so all my co-ops are science.
Okay.
So I'm not
Seems
really
targeted.
We need you fixing
That
the
seems
world.
targeted,
relevant.
and
Stuff.
you should ignore what I've been talking about. Yes.
I worked at a law firm in the Seaport District, fully hired.
Nice. That's a great firm. They have actually our former Attorney General Martha Kobe works there.
She sure does.
Yeah. That's great. So, why did you work at this law firm?
Because I was interested in law school at the time.
Yeah. Not anymore.
I was gonna say, what did that experience
At
do
the
to
time,
your
that
hopes and
was a
dreams?
dangerous at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've had a lot of people tell me to like wait for a while, so now I'm just
You might
really
wait 5
considering
years.
it for a while.
Yeah, and let me tell you the other thing. There is, I mean, just let me tell you. Let me share with you this observation that you can accept or not. There is no rush. There is a lot of like, let me tell you where there's a rush. There's like a rush to get through, for most of us, there's like a rush to get through high school. You don't want to be like 20, right? You're like, I would like to get through high school in the like number of years that like, where it's sort of is supposed to take. You're like kind of hoping for that. And then there's like, there's some pressure to like go to college within a certain time frame. You're like kind of, I mean, everybody has unusual circumstances, financial issues, family issues, medical issues, who knows? But like otherwise you're kind of like trying to get through in like, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, something like that, right? Otherwise you're just really dragging it out, right? After that, there is no rush. It is all in your head. Everybody else is like just doing their thing, trying to figure out their thing. So this idea that you like gotta go to grad school in order to like get your life started, that's wrong. Your life is your life. Like you're living it right now.
Yeah.
Right now. And part of it is going to college, and then it'll be doing whatever you do next. And I run into people like my classmates and even people I work with who are sort of like, well, I might go do this because that'll set me up to do this next thing, or I'm gonna look at this because I might be interested in this thing, I wanna keep my options open. And I really don't think that's how it works. What you've gotta do is go do something you're interested in, and then like,
do well.
and then just like try to do other stuff from there, find something. So like so I love that you were interested in law school, and so you thought you'd go check out a law school. That's exactly what your co-op program is for. But if you're interested in public service, then like get a co-op in public
And
service.
there are, from what I understand, I have some students, there are co-ops that are working at the AG's office right now. Some of them do, I think, intake for like complaints.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of co-ops in the Attorney General's office. Now, I'm not saying that that's the place that you need to work. I think some of those are very good co-ops, but what's so sort of interesting about it is like what I was talking about was using volunteer time like outside of school to build relationships and try to meet some people and just try to figure out what I was interested in and get some experience in politics. And you guys have a built-in, you guys are required to do this kind of thing as part of graduating. I don't know, have any of you thought about using your co-ops that way?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
That's good. So let me open it up now if people have specific questions for Mike or even me, but mostly Mike, that you'd like to ask. And it can be about the 2016 campaign. We don't have to limit it to just Mike and his experiences. Questions? First question: where's my pizza? The answer is it's on its way. No, it's not. Sorry. Yeah.
I mean, one thing I would say, just because I can just talk,
Yeah.
is I think we are in an interesting moment politically, not with the presidential campaign. Sure, I mean, that's interesting for other reasons, but that's not what I'm talking about. I think we are seeing the understanding in the American mind of what it means to be an elected official and what that person looks like changing much more rapidly. In the 1990s, when 4 women were elected in the same year to the United States Senate, it was like the building's gonna be set on fire, this is crazy. And it was 4 women, right? So, the idea was sort of, politicians are men in suits with like families, with like smiling families behind them. And that's who a politician is, and like then somehow these 4 women have like shown up here and are crashing this party. And I think that's and I think that there is still some of that sort of built-in bias, but it's changing. We see that all the time. I mean, my boss is an openly gay top law enforcement officer in a state where not too long ago her relationship was illegal. Her relationship would have been illegal.
Right.
So, and certainly within all of our living memory would not have been recognized as sort of like legally sanctioned. So this is shifting, and it is shifting rapidly. It's like what's that principle about like the speed at which like computer chips move?
Moore's law?
Yeah, right?
Right.
I don't think we're moving that quickly right now, but you know,
On LGBT issues, it's been unreal.
on LGBT issues,
Yeah.
I think that's true, but I think what we're seeing is that what you picture when you sort of think of an elected official and sort of who's involved in politics. I mean, literally, you look at photos of the places where, you know, of like the State House or Congress or wherever, and you know, it all looks like Apollo 13. Like if you know that movie, like it's all these dudes like with the same shirts on and the same ties and the same eyeglasses, right? And that's totally changing. And so you have a chance right now as like people who are just like coming into your professional lives to be a part of that. And I think that that's an exciting opportunity. So you should avail yourself of it.
And that sort of resonates with things that Governor Dukakis talked about, which is this is a much different world in 2015 and 2016 than the world that he came out of, right? We sort of tend to look at the past as this perfect place, greatest generation, but there were still formal and informal barriers for a lot of people to get involved that have been eroding. Questions, comments, observations? Yeah, Dan.
So, what's
And I'll say, tell us where you're from.
Okay,
what
so
your name is, Dan.
I'm Dan O'Leary. I'm from Andover, Mass.
Great.
So what's weird about running a campaign in Massachusetts versus other states?
What's weird about? Well, I've never managed a campaign in another state. I will say what's. Let me answer it this way, and just take it as a general question about like what's weird or ridiculous about running a campaign or managing a campaign. And I will tell you the following. The campaigns have an accelerated timeline for everything because unlike a startup business, let's say, where you're trying to sort of get an operation off the ground, you know the day on which your organization has to perform and the day on which it's going to shut down, right? And it's never that long. We're talking about sort of 11, 12 months at the max. So you've got this sort of pressure on you to perform. Like we needed to raise on our campaign just to sort of stay reasonably competitive. $3,000 a day for the entire length of the campaign, which doesn't sound crazy, but like think about who you would call if you had to raise $3,000 in a day. Maybe you could do it for a day. Maybe you could do it for 2 days or a week, right? And maybe it would be like hard to do it on a weekend. And then you've got to do it the next week and the week after that, and you have to do it every week.
Holidays.
For exactly, like Thanksgiving week is coming up, and that's like shot, right? And every time we didn't do it, we had to like figure out another week where we were going to make it up. So that was terrifying. Every single day was like kind of there was this little like terrifying oh my god thing, and I would sometimes like we have this online portal where you can like track donations, and sometimes like a crazy person you would like log into it and then just like hit refresh to like see like anyone had contributed. And then you get like $25 and you're feeling great about that, but also you had to raise $3,000 in the day, so that was hard. The other thing is, you want the candidate is not, the candidate of course is running the campaign, right? I mean, they're in charge, but it's sort of like, the candidate is like your product. The candidate's like what you're selling. It's a little bit like, if you think of, if you analogize to a movie, let's say, right? Like the lead actor is not like the production manager for the movie, right? In fact, there's this whole team of people who need to make all these decisions so that the lead actor or can go out there and like do a great job every day and like pitch and like they're the front man. They're like trying to sell the idea of the campaign. So what you end up doing is having to make just a tremendous number of decisions every day. Small, large, what are we going to spend money on? Are we going to hire somebody? What are we doing today? In terms of the schedule, because, you've got a week in front of you and there's nothing on it, except for like, try to win campaign this week somehow. So like, how are you going to do that? Like, where are you going to meet people? How much time are you going to spend in the car? When you're in the car, like if you're going to try to use the time wisely, you're supposed to make phone calls. Well, who are you going to call, right? And how are you going to have that organized? And what is the timeline on which you're going to put out some policy? And what's the website going to say? And what color is the website going to be? And what photographs are going to be on the website? The just number of things you need to decide was totally unlike anything I'd experienced before. So, and you do it with people, but that was very surprising and unlike anything else I'd ever done.
I'm Chloe. I'm from New Hampshire.
Yeah, of course, man. Nice.
Yeah, I study international affairs. So could be weirdly related, like political science.
Come
or
on.
whatever.
We're all in the social
Great
science.
related.
Yeah,
Greatly related.
yeah.
Yeah. So my question is back to, you were talking about female representation in the Senate.
Yeah.
And right now it's only 20%, which is like considered really great, but also women represent 50% of the population. So do you think in order to become more equally represented, it's like a cultural shift, like an education kind of thing, or do you think like things need to be put in place to enhance like women's ability to get elected?
Well,
Because there are initiatives to like push women into politics and stuff like that.
yeah, I have a lot of respect for organizations that have sort of as their stated purpose, like helping women sort of get out there and run. In fact, my boss was just speaking at an organization called Emerge, which helps train women at sort of like all levels of government who were like otherwise totally, who are like accomplished and, people to sort of, with some of the tools to like give them the confidence to sort of get out there and do it. I do not really think that's the issue though. I think the issue is, well, there's two. The first thing is, you won't have women in any sort of power echelon, like whether it's in business or in politics or anything, like at an equivalent level, I think structurally, until we do more co-equal parenting. Like, it's just, it takes sort of like what percent of women at one point will like have a kid or adopt a kid or something like, or participate in foster care. It's like a very, very high percentage, right? True of men also, right? But like, then they are like, then there's just totally unequal, responsibility. And I have a twin sister and she's got 2 little kids and like, I see it right now. And my brother-in-law is like a wonderful, liberal, amazing guy, but like my sister does more of the work, so.
It's not 50-50.
Not even close,
Yeah.
right? So I think, and part of that is like everybody like stepping up to do their part, and then part of it is companies like having policies in place, particularly for younger women employees, so that they can continue to meet those obligations that they have at home while like advancing along in their professional career. Because otherwise you just don't have enough women who are like at a point professionally where they're sort of like, I am now like, ready to like, enter elected office. You've got to like have that structural pipeline in place. Secondly, and I think this is happening, is as we change that idea of what a politician looks like, and as we start picturing like a smart awesome, like high-powered